listen, I like beans, okay? But could I eat it every day, every single meal? Let's find out. Hey everyone, Morgan here. I was challenged. I asked people if you would dare me to do something, and I want you to dare me to do something in the comments below for future videos. Just dare me to do something and I will or will not do it. Hey, we'll see, right? But dare me to do something and I'll see if we can do it. So I was first challenged to make beans on my Coleman stove for a week. Well, I decided to do it for 5 days and to see if not only could I cook the beans on the stove, which of course I did. It was super easy. You just do it the way that you would make beans any other way. So I made 2 pounds of beans, 1 pound of black beans and 1 pound of pinto beans. And this lasted me the entire 5 days. Now I had beans with breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 5 days. It was a little tough. By like the 4th day, I was like, I don't want to. But as you can see here on the screen, you can see everything I made for these 5 days. I felt really good and full and fulfilled with these meals. I really enjoyed them. Beans were never the star of my meals though. It was more like, hey, here's some beans with this. And normally that's how we eat beans. We eat beans 2 to 3 times a week, but it's not for like every meal, you know what I'm saying? And when we eat the beans, it's usually not the star. It's usually something like, hey, I'm gonna have it on, the side with some chicken and rice, or I'm gonna have the beans and with some tuna on, some whatever, some potatoes or whatever. So usually it's like a side piece. It's not so much a main piece, okay? I did the quick soak method and then I cooked it. With beans, we have to keep in mind that most people will say that beans, if you eat too much, it'll make you toot or give you stomach problems or something like that. The only way it'll give you stomach problems is if you do not properly soak and or cook the beans. That is where it's going to give you stomach problems. So people really need to know how to properly do it. Now, of course, the instructions are right there on the pack in order to overnight soak or quick soak and then how to cook. It's really not complicated. It's time consuming. That's what it is. And it uses an incredible amount of water, dried beans. This is why I like to have a lot of canned beans on hand, just because it uses, of course, way less water. You just open the can and eat it, right? You have it ready to go eat right away. You're not waiting to use it or have to plan ahead or anything like that. But I made a meal plan, which helped me a lot prepare and get ready for my meals. And I did it in really creative ways. I'm not the type of person that's just going to throw a bunch of beans on rice and call it good. Okay, I have to have variety. And we eat mostly pinto and black beans, so that's what I decided to choose for this. Now I could have done like red beans or white beans or navy beans or all these other beans. I could have done the 15 bean soup, whatever. But I just decided this was the easiest thing for me to do, and that I know my family eats pinto and black beans, so that's what we store the majority of. By like the 3rd day, I was like, okay, kind of getting a little sick of having beans with every single meal. By the 4th day, I was really like, ugh, do you have to put beans on it? I kind of just didn't feel hungry anymore for beans. And then by the 5th day, I was really struggling to put beans with my meals. It was a struggle. I was like, do I seriously have to put beans with this? It was a struggle. Now, if you have beans and rice in your preps, and if it's like the only thing you're planning on eating, I highly recommend taking this challenge on. Why don't you go ahead and eat beans and rice for every single meal for a solid week? I only did this for 5 days and I was just like, ugh, but go ahead and eat beans and rice for a solid 7 days and see how you feel afterwards. It's draining to have the same thing over and over again. It is mentally and spiritually draining, especially for me and my family. I want to make sure I'm providing, of course, nutritious meals, but meals that the family's going to enjoy. And I'm not going to, we're not all going to be dreading, what we're going to eat. Listen, we're preppers. Okay, so prep food that you're going to eat and have variety. Okay, if you're going to have beans and rice for every meal, fantastic. But what else could you have with it? Could you have beans and rice and some canned chicken, along with like maybe some, canned vegetables and fruit? Like add a little variety and mixture into it. Okay, so take this challenge on for yourself and see how you do, because I think people have this unrealistic expectation that, well, if you're hungry, you'll eat anything. Sure, but again, we're preppers, so we have to keep up our morale, especially in a really stressful situation in which you're having to go to your preps in order to, thrive, right? We want you to thrive, not just survive. So in order to continue thriving, you're going to your preps and, because you've stocked up and you're ready. But we want you to continue to thrive, both with your morale and your mental well-being and all this stuff. So, by taking on these types of challenges, you realize, gosh, I really need more variety, or you know what, I just need to know how to better cook these to add it in with my meals, so that I'm getting my beans and rice in, or whatever, but I'm also getting a more nutriently balanced meal. As you saw with these meals, it was more like, hey, I'm having beans and rice, or, it wasn't even beans and rice. It was mostly just beans. Hey, I'm having some beans and an egg, but I'm also going to have this avocado. I'm also going to have, all this stuff. And you can get, the fruits and vegetables through canned, through dehydrated, freeze-dried. You can, of course, have your garden. Lots of ways to have either fresh or canned or, freeze-dried or dehydrated fruits and vegetables with your meals, okay? So you can have that variety as long as we prep ahead. Making that meal plan ahead of time is a huge time saver. And I recommend this no matter what. You need to have a plan for your meals, okay? For your, if you store beans and rice, how are you going to make them? What type of meals are you going to make them with? Of course, sure, go ahead and just make your beans and rice. Do what you got to do, okay? Me, I couldn't survive on just beans and rice for every single meal. I would go literally insane by like day 4, okay? And my kids and, and even my husband, we definitely couldn't do it. It would be very difficult. So that's why I prep. That's why I prep variety. And that's just me and my family, okay? The very last thing that I wanted to touch on was how long the 2 pounds that I made lasted. The 2 pounds lasted the entire 5 days. In fact, they would last the 7 weeks. I had more of the pinto beans left over than the black beans. We tend to eat more black beans than pinto beans, but we did have some left over and it was in the fridge. And if you're wondering, hey, but Maureen, in an emergency, how am I going to keep this stuff, fresh in the fridge? Well, you can do what I do here, and you can have a generator powering your fridge so that you can still keep your stuff good. And of course, there are always leftovers. So if like you make a big batch of enchiladas or soup or whatever, you can have that as a leftover. I do like leftovers. Sometimes I'll have it like not the next day, but the following day, or sometimes instead of for the next dinner, I'll have it for the next lunch, that kind of thing. So again, we're offering variety and mixing it up a little, okay? Well, that was my experiment. It definitely showed me that it was really, really tough to have beans for every single meal. Could we do it? Of course, as long as we have a bunch of that variety in with it. But variety. I'm a prepper. For me and my family, variety is what I choose to stick with. Of course, we eat beans and rice all the time, and I'll continue to stock up on it. But there's going to be lots of variety along with it. Thank you all so much for watching Conquer Tomorrow by Preparing Today. What do you dare me to do? And I dare you watching this, to do a similar challenge. Eat beans for every single meal for a week. I'll talk to you later. Bye.